The floorboard of the shed was creaking under my feet. My girlfriend and I were huddled, too scared to even breathe. The sweat was trickling down my face, and the only thing I could think of was our safety. Through a crack in the wall, I could see my eldest brother approaching. Shh! If he catches us now, our secret would be out. My heart was beating so fast that I was terrified he would hear it. Shh! My name is Sena, and I grew up in a small town in Morocco together with 5 brothers. My parents didn't have a happy marriage. When I turned 5, my mother left us, and it was up to my dad to raise his family. This meant I was the only girl, growing up in an all-male environment. When my brothers were little, everything was always super fun. Although I was the only girl, I enjoyed being outdoors and playing games with them. But life started to get difficult when they got older and discovered that they were stronger than me. My brothers were much taller than me when they started to control me. They would comment on my clothes, say that I wore too much makeup, and that I wasted my time writing fantasy stories about a superwoman who would save the world. Everything I did was wrong in their eyes. They would blame me and say mean things to me. I felt trapped in my own house, and I started to isolate myself. In the end, we would hardly talk to each other. Did I miss the connection I used to have with my father and brothers? Of course. I loved them in my own way. My father didn't know any better as he grew up in a conservative family where every decision and habit were based upon his beliefs. There were rules you had to follow because of his beliefs, like when and how to pray, what a woman should look like and dress like, and who you could and couldn't speak to. I slowly started to understand why my mother decided to leave him. I was desperate to have someone that I could talk to and share my feelings. But I only had my dad, and I knew that if I turned to him, he wouldn't hesitate to abandon me. When I was 16, I started to cut my hair, which escalated into a massive conflict with my father and brothers. I didn't listen and cut it. People in the neighborhood would stare at me and make sick jokes about the way I looked, but I tried my best to ignore them and moved on. As soon as I got home, I locked myself in my room. This was the only place where I felt safe, and the only place I could spend time on my passion for writing, my feelings, and fantasies. When I passed my exams, I was finally able to escape the suffocating environment that I grew up in, as I decided to attend university in Casablanca. In the beginning, I felt lost. It was a big city, and I was scared to walk down the street alone. In Morocco, it's not safe for girls to be out alone, especially in big cities where men are known to catcall women and make inappropriate comments. Whether you're walking home or buying groceries, there's always someone that'll make a rude comment. It's sad, but I had to learn to live with it. One day, I was on my way home from university when a girl got on the bus. I don't know why, but for some reason I felt an instant attraction. She sat down a few seats in front of me and I just couldn't stop looking at her. I desperately wanted to talk to her, and I was figuring out how I would get her attention. When the woman next to her got off, I didn't hesitate and asked her politely if I could sit next to her. "Yeah, sure," she said. I tried to be subtle by looking at her sometimes, but not for too long in case she noticed me staring. She took a book out of her bag, and I asked her what she was reading. She responded with a shy smile and said, "The Price of Salt." This was when I knew she was just like me. We met a few times, and it didn't take long for our friendship to turn into a relationship. Back in that time, it was okay to go out and walk hand in hand with a friend, even though you were constantly being watched by everyone around you. If you did anything that looked remotely suspicious, the police would be informed. So, in public, we pretended that we were just friends. Just like the one day when we were sitting in her car in the parking lot of a shopping mall. We were only talking and had both put our seats back. All of a sudden, we saw a creepy man lurking through the side window. We got so scared and we screamed at the top of our lungs, and that's when he ran away. It was clear that he thought we looked suspicious, because 5 minutes later, a police officer was standing right next to our car. My girlfriend started to freak out. I calmed her down by playing the radio and acted as if nothing happened. The police asked what we were doing and why our seats were pulled back. They made some nasty remarks, and one of them blew his cigar smoke in my face. Luckily, in the end, they only asked to see our IDs, but we both knew this could have ended up much worse for us. My girlfriend was so affected by everything that she began to distance herself from me. At the same time, my father got sick, and I decided to go back home to take care of him. Immediately, I could feel the controlling natures of my brothers again. I missed my girlfriend and desperately wanted to Skype with her, but the internet connection was so bad that I could barely communicate with anyone. When I arrived back to Casablanca, my girlfriend told me she didn't want to see me anymore. I was devastated. She was my first love. My sadness soon turned into anger. Why was I not allowed to love her? Why was my family so conservative, and what is this value of religion if it stops you from being with the person you love? It took a year before I started to go out again, and that's when I met another girl. She came from a similar background as me and had gone through many problems with her family. We just couldn't stop talking to each other. It turns out she was married off at a young age but felt trapped in her relationship. We saw each other once a month, and I would send her the occasional email to see how she was doing. During one of our Skype conversations, she told me how she admired people who dared to come out and express themselves for who they are and what they think. I told her that every person should be able to choose who they want to be with, and that no one else can decide that for them. At that time, I had a part-time job in a bookstore, and one day, out of the blue, she entered the store. This happened again the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Every day she would come in pretending to find a book, purposely not looking at me as if she was afraid to be seen with me. One day, she didn't come in, and I felt so heartbroken. I spent the whole day checking my watch, hoping she would walk in before my shift was over. Thankfully, she did, and that's when I decided to ask her out for a cup of coffee. And to my surprise, she was more than happy to join me. We went to a cafe and began talking about anything and everything. She told me that she wanted to leave her husband, but didn't know how to go about it and was afraid of the consequences. When I got up to go to the toilet, she followed me. As we were standing in front of the mirror, she asked if she could borrow my brush. We giggled nervously when our eyes met in the mirror. I couldn't resist my feelings anymore and kissed her. Of course, I knew that she was married, and I'm certainly not the type of person who wants to ruin someone else's relationship, even though I knew she was unhappy. In the end, she decided to divorce her husband. It didn't take long before she started to hang out with me more often, and we came up with 1,000 excuses to keep it a secret. We were together for a few years, and my girlfriend had never seen anyone in my family, except for some family pictures. So one day, when I told her I was going to go visit my father, she said that she wanted to come with me. My father lived on his own. My eldest brother was the only one who stayed in the same village, so we pretended that we were just good friends because if there's one thing I absolutely did not want happening, was my family finding out about our relationship. Unfortunately, that visit didn't go as planned. I knew that I could probably convince my father that there's nothing going on between us. Everything was going smoothly until my girlfriend and I were watching TV in the living room and my older brother, who I was most afraid of, unexpectedly showed up. He knew me well enough to know that I was keeping something from him. I panicked and wanted to hide. I was sure that if he knew that I was in a relationship with another woman, he would never let me see her again. To avoid my brother, we ran outside and hid in the shed. My girlfriend and I were huddled together, too scared to even breathe. The sweat was trickling down my face, and through a crack in the wall, I could see my older brother approaching. Shh! If he catches us now, our secret would be out. My heart was beating so fast that I was terrified he would hear it. Shh! He got really angry and went straight to tell my father and the rest of my family. This was a nightmare. They thought it was a temporary illness that I could be cured from. My uncle, who also lived close by, yelled at my girlfriend. He said that if she ever showed up again, he would throw honey all over her and let a swarm of bees attack her. It was awful what they said to her. My girlfriend then ran away and didn't want to see me anymore. This was the second time my chance at finding love was taken away from me. Even today, my brothers keep a careful eye on me and try to control what I'm doing. But I've gotten so much smarter when it comes to avoiding them and hiding things from them. I use a fake name for my blog to report all the hardships young women face in Morocco with their strict traditions and negative views. We often forget that there's still many places in the world where you aren't allowed to express yourself, and that people who are seen as different are still considered wrong. But here I am today, in the Netherlands. I was invited by RNW, an international radio station, to speak at Pride Amsterdam about my experiences and join the Canal Parade. I want to raise awareness to show countries like mine how places like the Netherlands accept the LGBTQ+ community. I hope that my work as a writer and activist would contribute to a more accepting LGBTQ+ environment worldwide, and that people understand it is okay to be different. No religion or family should ever stop you from being yourself. And that's what I'll continue to fight for.